My dear respected brothers and sisters, today we'll talk about the last part of hadith, the 7 people whom will be under the shade of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the day of judgment. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that the last one is a person who remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala while this person alone by himself, not with people. And when he remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his eyes start to treat. His eyes, they become like a water out of his eyes. Brothers and sisters, when it was last time when you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala while you are alone, you cry. You cry because you want to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You cry because you don't want to be under the treatment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the torment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You cry because you want to be with Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. When it was last time, brothers, you may say last time it was in last Ramadan, or I don't remember because long time ago I was crying. And it could be for the akhirah, fearing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or it could be about the dunya, because mostly people, when they have any problem in their life, they start to cry. But when they have problem in their religion, when their iman and their faith is weak, they don't cry. But I remember the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that once he was with Aisha radiallahu anha, and he told Aisha, "Let me to worship my Lord." And he stand in the night time praying for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until the Fajr time comes. And Bilal, may Allah be pleased with him, came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and told him that the time of Salah comes. And he found that what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was crying. And he told him, "O Rasulullah, why you cry while Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already forgave all of your sins?" And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "I have to be thankful person. I have to be thankful servant to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala." So we should thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we should stop and think about our sins, about the future in our life, about the end of our life, about our time when we were, insha'Allah ta'ala, in our grave. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for us, about when we stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. عينان لا تمسهما النار عين بكت من خشية الله وعين باتت تحرس في سبيل الله. There is one eye, or 2 kinds of eyes, will not be punished in the day of judgment in the hellfire. One of them, one eye, a person who was crying from the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And even 1 drop of tear comes out of his eye, it will save him from the hellfire if it's fearing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not crying about the dunya. Ibn al-Qayyim, may Allah be pleased with him, mentioned different kinds of crying. The highest level, when you cry fearing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you cry, this is the highest level, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves the person who is doing this thing. And the second kind, the crying out of the mercy. So sometimes we see this in our life. And the other kind, the crying of the love. And it could be love for halal, and it could be for haram. But we are talking about the halal kind. And the other kind, the crying of the happiness and of the problems and the tribulations in the life, also the grief. And lastly, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not to make us among this kind, the hypocrites kind of cry, and those who are crying just in front of people only if they know that people are watching over them, they cry. But if they are alone, or if they know that nobody is watching over them, they don't cry. This is the bad kind of cry. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not to make us among this kind of people. Brothers and sisters, we want to work on our hearts. We want to have such a feeling of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his Sahaba radiallahu anhum and the followers. Until now, there are many people, they try to be alone in the night time, and they take the Quran and they recite some of the verses of the Quran and they start to cry. Brothers, try to practice it. Because if you don't practice it now, if you don't cry in this life out of fearing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will cry in the day of judgment. If you don't cry hoping to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you may cry, but in the hellfire. So this is good sign for the believers. When they are alone, they try to mention Allah's name, they try to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His punishment and His reward for those who are obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then subhanallah al-azim, they will have such a feeling. If you pay millions of dollars to get it in this life, you cannot. But if you spend few minutes by yourself, reciting the Quran, praying for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, doing whatever you think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be satisfied on what you're doing, inshaAllah ta'ala, you will be among those who will be saved from the torment in the hellfire, and you will be inshaAllah under the shade of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the day of judgment. Brothers and sisters, if you want to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you want to practice, how can my tears come out of my eyes, fearing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to do, first of all, you have to know who is your Lord. You have to know His names. You have to know His book. You have to know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is able to do everything, anything, at any time. And He could punish you anytime, or He could bless you and give you His mercy at any time. Also, you have to afraid that you are not able to do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to do, and afraid from the sins, because our sins may throw us to the hellfire if there is no the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless all of us with His mercy. Also, brothers and sisters, remember the death and the last moment in your life. And it could be now, or today, maybe tomorrow. We don't know our end of our life. The only one who knows Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have to be ready for that moment. And the thing which help you to make your heart soft and to let your eyes bring some tears, khawfan min Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fearing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, try to see the dead people. Try to visit the sick people in the hospitals. And look what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you from the blessings. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes you a healthy person, wealthy person. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you everything. And He wants you to be close to Him. So if you do so, you may have softness in your heart. Also, remember always that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching over you. And recite the Quran. When you read the verses of the Jannah or the hellfire, try as much as you can to imagine that you are standing alone in the grave or in the hellfire or in the Jannah. So when you remember this thing and you think about it, your heart may get more soft, inshaAllah ta'ala. Also, try to have good friends who remind you always how to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because some of our friends, they remind us about the dunya. Cars, houses, friends, wealth, bank accounts, everything related to the dunya. We want to have one of our friends to remind us about the akhirah, about the life after. So it's very important to have at least one of your friends who remind you always about the life after. Lastly, brothers and sisters, there's two things. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always to make your heart soft. And don't put even one piece of food in your stomach except from halal. Some of my brothers may say, you are talking about one piece of food. The house is haram. And our food from haram. Our business is haram. Our life almost full of haram. How can we do so? Wallahi, ikhwani, if you remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who provides you, and He promised in the Quran that your rizq, nobody will get it except you in this life, you will avoid the haram. And you will try to do as much as you can from the halal only, not from the haram. So brothers and sisters, this is amana, it's trust. Your heart is trust. Your body is trust. Your family is trust. So you have to give them the halal, so your heart may become more softer, inshaAllah ta'ala. And whenever you mention Allah's name, your tear may come out of your eyes. Then, inshaAllah ta'ala, you will be under the shade of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the day of judgment. قُلْتُ مَا سَمِعْتُمْ وَاسْتَغْفِرُ اللَّهَ لِي وَلَكُمْ إِنَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ.